Welcome back to the Blue Chip Breakdown, Vols fans. I'm your host, Bull, and we right back like we left something. We just made the video talking about how the defense is probably going to be changing a little bit of the scheme and things like that with the new personnel. And, we touched on a couple of these guys. TMac is one of the guys that we touched on that we didn't know if he was coming or staying, but we had a feeling that he was going to be leaving. And, pretty much everyone who we thought was going to be leaving, everyone who has kind of been hinted at, they're probably going to be leaving, and we'll be hearing something about it this week. It's all happening. So TMac is gone, and it looks like Welsey Walker will be the next one, just because the dominoes have fallen the way that we heard that they were going to fall. So we are pretty much losing, like we thought, our entire starting secondary. Now, we still don't know about Gabe Judy Lally. And, a lot of people are just talking about guys that we want to have pushed out and things like that. To me, if there was anyone out of the guys that are leaving, especially out of those starters that probably needed to be pushed out for some young blood, it was Gabe Judy. Because even though he probably played the best out of all, well, probably not even the best, he probably played the best out of the cornerbacks that were left, obviously outside of Haddon could not come back. But he had such a limitation because he just cannot play man coverage down the football field. So, it'd be cool if he comes back. But I just don't, I feel like we need to upgrade at corner from what he brought to the table. So, he probably will also be gone. But let's just talk about TMac because he is the newest addition to players that we know definitely are in the transfer portal. So, again, he's about 6'2", 220 pounds. I know he's not listed at that on the current sites, but he is about 220 pounds. And he was like a linebacker / safety / cornerback hybrid. Extremely versatile. There's a lot of fans that seem to think that these pieces just didn't mean anything to this team, and that's just not true. Nothing could be further from the truth. I think that out of all these players, TMac and Welsey Walker were the two that we really needed the absolute and total most, because now we're really starting to get very thin from a depth perspective. We're going to kind of talk about the numbers some. So without having TMac in there, we've got to go out into the transfer portal, I believe, and try to find somebody. Who do you find that is that big and can play man-to-man coverage and, can come up and tackle? It does not grow on trees, guys. I promise you that. That is not an easy thing to find. And that's my whole point in saying that these guys are not just some scrubs that we're losing. It's not like, these veterans that could have came back didn't come back, and now these true freshmen come in, or, these second-year guys that, by the way, barely played last season come in, and they're just going to be so great, so much better. Now, I hope that happens, but, come on. Realistically speaking, that's a very tall, ask. That's a very tall task, for these younger guys. And, I'm just afraid of this fan base turning on some of these younger guys if they perform the way that some of these veterans that are leaving did. But, maybe we can get him back in the, maybe he will come back from the transfer portal. I'm definitely not banking on that. Just kind of throwing a little glimmer of hope out there. We do have some good young guys. I just don't, we're going to have to be going through a lot of growing pains. Like this next season, the defense probably will see a lot of growing pains from this bunch, just because there's not a lot of guys that have played a lot. We've got a few older guys, but they just have not played that much in real game situations. Let's go down the list of guys that could potentially play star that's on this roster or that's coming into this roster next year. And let's also talk about some guys that could also maybe play safety, because again, we are, at the point where, we are anticipating that Welsey Walker will be the next one on this team to throw his name into that transfer portal. All right, so I wrote these down, and I will be glancing down just to check on my notes. I wanted to make sure I can get this video out quickly for y'all, but the first one is number 14 on the roster, and that's Christian Charles. He's 6'1", 195 pounds. Next year, he will be a senior. He's played, everywhere from corner to star to safety. So he's a versatile enough guy. And, I think that he played more star last season for us. And then he played a little bit more safety for us this season. He did get hurt, so we haven't been able to see much of him. But he's a guy that, I feel like they'll do the same thing that they've done since he's been on campus. Move him around and see, where does he fit at best. You would think, though, you would hope that the staff has some sort of an idea of that, since they have moved him pretty much everywhere. So hopefully they've got a general idea of where he can play at. And, they can kind of plug him in there. We'll kind of do like a big picture once we kind of go through everyone else, because we've got a few more. Next guy is number 25 on the roster. That's Jordan Thomas. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. He's currently a sophomore. He'll be a junior next season. We saw him get some good playing time at star this season. He looked pretty solid there. You know, he kind of started off shaky. You know, might have been some nerves. But as the season kind of went on, he looked a lot more solid in coverage. But he's not, you know, I'm not going to lie to y'all. He was not as good in coverage as TMac was. He just wasn't. So he definitely is going to have to work on that for sure. And he's another guy that could also play safety. He could play either one. And, you know, he's a taller guy. He's a longer guy. So obviously that gives you some more versatility. He's a good athlete. You know, I think that Christian and Jordan are both guys that could play man, and Jordan to me is a lot more of a zone guy, which is kind of why I'm saying maybe try to push him to safety and, you know, just try to keep him, you know, in more of a deep zone like we talked about in the earlier video, playing a little bit more cover two and just kind of like roaming and just kind of like cleaning things up. I think that would fit his skill set a little bit better than having to come up to the line of scrimmage and having to play some, you know, more man to man. So the next guy is number 29 on the roster. That's Christian Harrison, 6'1", 190 pounds, currently a sophomore. He will be a junior next season. Now, hopefully we can retain Christian. Okay. He has not played much at all, but I've seen him in practice. Okay. Like I've seen little clips of him, and I know some of y'all probably think, well, practice is different from the actual game situations. But what I love about him is he's got really good technique. And again, he's got good size. He's going to be versatile enough that he could play corner, he could play star, he could play safety. And, you know, his dad is probably going to be a Hall of Fame safety at some point in Rodney Harrison. So you know that he understands what it takes. And, you know, I hope that he does stay with us because we really can use him and he is a good enough player. I hope that this entire situation that's happening right now, the coaching staff is going to do a better job of getting these younger guys ready to play and of throwing some guys out there and giving them an opportunity to do that. So next guy is going to be a true freshman. He's number 33 on the roster, and John Slaughter, 6'2", 195 pounds. He will be a sophomore next season. He cannot redshirt. He played in too many games, primarily on special teams, but we did get to see him some playing safety. And obviously, you know, he kind of went through his lumps, you know, kind of went through his growing pains, but he's a very versatile athlete, okay? I think that he could either play star or safety, but he's a lot more of a safety to me. You know, he can play man coverage. He's going to be good in zone. He's going to come up into that box and fill. And that's something that we talked about earlier, but please keep that in mind, okay? It's not just about a guy's size or their coverage. For a lot of these guys, we're talking about the star position and the safeties. It's not like playing corner where, you know, you're not going to have to be as physical. Those guys are going to have to, on a very consistent basis, be physical. They're going to have to take on offensive linemen, blocking them, pulling, or tight ends with, you know, 10 to 15 yards, you know, full speed sprint at them. They're going to have to be able to take that on. You know, so these guys are going to have to be very, very tough. We'll touch on that a little bit more and you will understand why I'm talking about that as we kind of go through. The next guy that I'm putting out there that could potentially play star, I think especially, and you know, maybe safety, is number 24 on the roster, Jordan Matthews. He's 6'2", 185 pounds. He's a true freshman. He may be able to get redshirted. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think that he played too much special teams, so he may be coming in as a sophomore. Either way, it doesn't really matter. He's not used to, or he didn't get a whole lot of like real playing reps on defense. So again, he's going to be very, very new to it. He's been working, as far as I've heard, at cornerback. I do want to say that I may have heard that he was working some at star at some point, maybe in the spring or maybe in summer camp, but don't quote me on that. So I'm not 100% sure, but he's got that length, right? That he could play star or he could play safety. You would just need for him to kind of fill out more. And, you know, he's definitely a physical football player. So you love that about him. And that's not going to change as he grows and gets bigger and stronger. If you're a, you know, mentally physical football player, if your mindset is on playing physical, you're going to do that. And it's the same thing if your mindset is the exact opposite. It does not matter how much weight you gain, how much stronger you get. If you're not a, you know, guy that mentally wants to get in on contact, that's just never going to change. And that's the last thing that we want to have playing safety. We've seen that too much on this team, okay? And that is going to be very, very frustrating if, you know, these guys are coming in and, you know, they are not playing physical football. You cannot play in the middle of this defense without playing physical. If you don't, I mean, you should love contact, okay? If you're going to shy away from it, the defense is going to take a gigantic step backwards. That's another place that people tend to overlook with our team last season with the secondary. Those guys were not afraid to get in on contact, okay? They came up and they stuck their nose in there, and it takes a lot of courage to be able to do that at the SEC level. So, say what you want about those guys, but they played hard. That's one of the biggest things. Now, the next guy, okay, number 17 on the roster, Andre Turrentine. He's 5'11", 195 pounds. He's a redshirt sophomore, and he will be a redshirt junior next season. So we didn't get to see him play much this year, but we did see him towards the end of the season. Once we saw TMac go down and Wesley Walker go down, he played a lot more. Now, as I was talking about, with the physicality, with the not turning it down, talked about this with him several times. It's hard to play safety if you're going to play like that. If you're shying away from contact at any point, to me, I'm just saying me, if I was the one doing this thing, I would not have that. And I'm just going to tell you, you will not see that from any of the, upper echelon SEC teams, or really any of the upper echelon teams, period. Watch their safeties. Watch Georgia's safeties. Watch Alabama's safeties. Okay, watch Texas's safeties. All right, watch Michigan's safeties. Watch Florida State safeties. All these teams, their safeties that are starting are not shying away from contact. They're not turning it down, whether a person is about to score or not. Seen Andre Turrentine doing that a lot. That scares me. And, I'm just going to leave it at that right there. Now, coming in as true freshman next season, we'll have Caleb Beasley, who's listed at 6 feet tall, 185 pounds. Okay, I think he may be a little bit closer to about 6'1". He's got a good frame. Okay, he's got good height. He's got good length. And he's, 185. I think that he could come in at about 195. Okay, he looks solid. He looks really solid, but he also looks like he's got a lot more room to add some weight. So he's a guy that could potentially get up to, I think, 205, 208, maybe even 210, and be just as good of an athlete. So great shutdown corner, okay? Great in coverage, very smart player, but he could also play, again, star or safety. Next guy is Boo Carter, 5'10", 185 pounds. Now, a lot of people feel like he's going to come in and play safety. I think that he's on a little bit on the smaller side to play safety. I also have not seen a whole lot of him on film at all being a physical presence in the middle of that football field. You've got to be a thumper to play in the middle of the football field. It's not just about, like, if you're on the high school level, and if you're coming up kind of like shoestring tackling people, the players get so much bigger and so much stronger that what do you think they're going to do at the college level? It's tough to be able to play like that. These guys are really good athletes. They're going to step right over you, okay? Like, not even jump, they're going to step right over you. So I'm very concerned, and, I would not put him at safety. That's just me. I would say that the best place for him would either be cornerback or star if he's going to be playing on defense. But I still think that overall for him, offense is where he needs to be at, okay? Moving on to the next guy, Marcus Gorey Jr., 6'1", and he's listed at 177, but I think he's probably closer to about 180, maybe 185. And, he probably will come in at about that weight. He's a much longer guy. And, I don't know if he'll be able to pick up the weight as quickly as I think that Caleb Beasley could. But, he can pick up some weight. And, he could play, again, he could play star or safety. I don't know which one fits his skill set better, but I feel like he could do either one of those at a pretty high level. We're just going to have to gain some more weight and get a little bit stronger. But, he's definitely physical enough. He's a tough player. Good in especially zone coverage, but he can also play man. That's a place that he will continue to grow at as he's on campus. And then the last guy is Idris Farouk, 5'11", 185 pounds. And to me, he's a safety. Okay, like I think that he is a true box safety. A lot more of a zone, I think, safety, but I've seen him look pretty solid in man coverage too. Definitely a guy that is physical enough to come up and make some plays. And he's, again, I've seen him in person. He's a pretty solid guy. I think that he's going to be fine. But out of all those guys, the only one that I see really having a chance to be able to play as a freshman would be Caleb Beasley, if you're talking about on defense. I think that Caleb Beasley and maybe Idris, just because of his size, unless these other guys kind of, fill out a ton, before the start of the season, that's kind of where I'm at with it, with those guys. So there's not a whole lot of depth. Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It looks like for me, and I could be off on this, but it looks like we've got 6 potential scholarship guys coming back that could, play star or could play safety. And then we've got 4 guys that are coming in. And then, you know, we've been targeting a guy. This is something I heard the other day, and I've been watching his film. His name is Tamarion Ramsey. He's from UCLA. He's 6'1", 205 pounds. He plays a lot of free safety for UCLA. There's some things that I like about his film, okay? One of the things that you like about him, period, is that, you know, he's got pretty solid size, and he is a freshman, so he would come in next year as a sophomore, so he's got plenty of time to try to grow into the system. I think that that's great, especially because, you know, we lost a safety, or, you know, really 2, you know, younger ones to the transfer portal, so that would be good. But the thing that does concern me about him is gonna be that, you know, he just doesn't show that physicality. He just does not show it. And, you know, again, I'm not trying to scare nobody, you know, like away from this team. You know, I'm not trying to be negative or, you know, none of that. Like, if y'all have watched this channel, then y'all know we are probably one of the more positive channels. And we always look at it, you know, glass half full, okay? It's not half empty, because there's always something positive that you can get from all of this. So I'm not trying to be negative, but just being honest from watching this film, it's concerning that he's not a very physical football player. Now, maybe they're planning on getting him in, maybe putting him in at star, and maybe changing up the scheme, you know, different from what I thought. Because coming into this, I was like, well, you know, maybe we could play a little bit of man, you know, maybe we could play more man than what we did last season. But I just don't think that he fits that mode at all. I just don't, you know, I don't see a whole lot from him on film that fits it. To me, it seems like it's kind of a reach. It's like, okay, this is a young safety. Let's get him in. Let's kind of see how it works. And, you know, he could most definitely prove me wrong. But that one's tough. I think that we probably need to try to keep on looking and try to find somebody else. Those guys in the middle of the football field have got to be tough. They've got to be more physical. I see him, you know, getting blocked a lot. Almost like he doesn't even want to get off the block. You know, it's almost like he uses the block to kind of like save him from having to get in on plays. That's just how it looks. All right, I'm just being honest. That's just how it looks. So we will, I'm sure, you know, I'm hoping that we will target some more players, because I think that it's definitely necessary for this team. You know, we've got to get some guys in that can play safety. And also, you know, talked about this in the earlier video as well. You never know how these guys are gonna, you know, grow. You know, some of these younger guys that we have on this roster, there's no telling how they're gonna grow and how much better they're going to get in the off season. So happy and thankful for the players that want to be at the University of Tennessee. And, you know, I wish them all the best. I wish the players that have played here, the players that have considered us, all the best. And, you know, I'm sure that they will land on their feet somewhere. And even if it's not back home, all right, hopefully they will continue to have success wherever they go. So that's going to be it for this one. Not too much more to add. As always, though, we will keep a close eye out on the transfer portal and on all the news, and we will keep y'all up to date as soon as something comes across our desk, so to speak. And, you know, we really appreciate y'all for tuning into the channel. Please make sure to like, subscribe, share with friends, family, and other volunteer fans. We'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace.